Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the planning board meeting, regular public meeting on Wednesday. Regular meeting and public hearing for Wednesday, October 19th at 6 p.m. Be advised that this is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast. If you can please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first order of business is to confirm the next meeting for November 2nd, 2022. And the first item on the agenda is to review, discuss, and act on a Form A application from Matthew and Jessica Mayer, 1701 and 1753 Cedar Street, map 18, lots 14 and 14-1. Yeah?
Good evening. Rachel Smith from Otis Dyer's office, representing Matthew and Jessica Mayer. They are the owners of two properties on Cedar Street, as you mentioned, 1753 and 1707.
Right.
Both of these lots are conforming as to frontage and area. They have extra area.
Mm-hmm.
So they're planning to sell house 1707 and would like to just divide it onto a 2-acre lot and keep the extra backland for themselves and combine it with the house they live in, which is 1753.
All right, so you're proposing splitting it up there into lot 1 and lot 2 per the drawing.
Yes.
One is going to have 248.99 foot of frontage, and the other one's 191, so you all...
Right, we're not changing any frontage. There
Okay.
was a little confusion in that, at one time, these houses all belong to the same family, different family members of the same family.
Right.
And they had brought a plan to you some time ago which straightened out the boundary line between the two houses.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, when a family member then sold 1707, they didn't tell the lawyer, and the lawyer deeded by the older plan.
Okay.
So there was a little confusion between the deeds and the plans. However, since it's now in common ownership again, this is all getting straightened out.
Got it. Okay.
So that's why you see an extra line there, but it'll all be straightened out once this is done.
Okay. Yeah, so it's 35,000 square foot minimum, 175 minimum lot frontage. Minimum front setback is 55 feet, and from the scale here, there's plenty. Minimum side yard is 15, rear yard is 15. Distance between buildings 10 feet. It all falls within the single-family dwelling requirements for all districts. So you meet all the parameters, and the application seems in order to me. Anything further before we?
No, it's just that basically we're not changing, these are existing houses and existing lines. The only thing that's really changing is the rear line on 1707.
Got it.
The only question I have is, the septic, did you show no perks, no nothing on here?
I apologize for that. 1707, the septic is directly behind the house.
Okay,
And the other one, the septic is, I'm trying to remember where it
that's
was.
really not my question.
Yep.
My question is there a reserve? Every lot has a reserve area.
When the
for it.
septic plan is approved, correct.
Right, and
Yep.
that's a concern, because, I mean,
Like, as I said, we're not changing the line between the houses, so we're not changing any line that's anywhere near a septic system.
Yes, you're
So it
good.
shouldn't affect any reserve area.
You're missing the detail on the plan here, is what he's saying. It's not shown.
I would have liked to have seen this plan to have a reserve area for a future septic system. Because I don't know if it perks up front here. And, you know, this back area may have been the area that the septic system would have perked, or a proposed septic system could go on there later on. And that's the only thing that I have, but I'm just a one person.
No, I understand what you're saying. I said, it looked to me as though it had a fairly new septic directly behind the house, so in general, I would expect the reserve area to is usually adjacent to the existing one, so that would also be behind the house. It's in between this gravel parking area and the structure. But I do understand what you're saying.
What is
It
the
is-
soil there like? Is it Dayton?
Yeah, it's, it's going,
It's kind of rocky.
if it's anything like Rehoboth, 'cause I'm on the Rehoboth Board of Health, so it's like, I know what you're talking about with septic systems. I don't expect that this is a sandy area. It's probably more, you know, of a glacial till type thing, but I don't think there would be any concern as far as them not having enough room for the septic. Further back, it actually gets wetter, so it definitely wouldn't be putting a system further back.
I don't know if the board, the rest of the board members feel, but,
There's a lot of detail missing on this.
hmm?
There's a lot of detail, because even if you look at where it talks about plans not believed to require approval, which is your Plan A, your
Form A, yep.
Form
I
A,
know.
sorry, your Form A.
Yep.
There's requirements for drawings. And I see where you're coming from, Mr. Figueredo, but like, there's a lot of things that, you know, so it talks about location of all existing buildings, including setback, side and rear yard destinations, and any existing structures on any remaining adjoining land, owned by the applicant, dimensions of yards related to such structures, locations and limits of approximate area of wetland resources as defined by the 310 CMR 10-0, location of easements and right of way, public and private. There's North Point, existing boundary lines, there's contour lines, there's some of the details here, some of it's missing. I mean, I just went along and looked at the scale of the map and did my own manual measurements to see the frontages and the side yards, so I was satisfied there, but there is a lot of detail missing on here, so I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but I see what you're saying. It would have been good to at least see that. Yeah, I noted these are all existing structures, you're not building new houses, you're just changing that, but you're presenting this as a Form A, A&R.
Yeah, A and R, Form A, yeah. same thing.
So that's, there's a list of things that typically would go on a drawing that are not present. All right, I'm looking at the right section, right, 2400?
I know that there's a lot of areas in the town of Dayton that percolate,
Should know it by
Page 11.
Right,
and it was 2 perks years ago. Now
Right.
it's 4.
right, 2 perks and 2 observation
page
holes.
11.
You go
Yep.
and sell a home,
No, she's got it. She didn't know if you wanted to look at it.
Yep,
septic system works beautiful now.
Do we typically make them have all those details for something like this?
A year down the line, it doesn't work. They go and try to
I mean, this is
redo
a
that.
different situation,
Right.
because it's,
right.
What happened
it'd be kind of hard pressed, because you'd have to get
if
everything,
it doesn't work?
things have to be
Right,
flagged.
so the
There's a lot
issue
of things
here
that would have
is,
to happen.
on this lot 1, the only thing we're changing is the rear line, and as I said, once you head back behind that rear line, you get into wetlands, so there was really no option for them to perk any further back on lot 1. The lot 1, if they do need to replace the septic system again, this is pretty much the area they'd be limited to anyway.
Well, that's, you are telling us this. You're not showing it at all on this
Okay,
plan.
I apologize, I missed,
No,
I missed that, I'm sorry about
I'm not
that.
looking for an
Yep.
apology.
No, I see.
I'm looking for a little more detail. on
Okay.
this. And that's my whole point.
Thank you. What do you think?
I'm good.
You good? Yeah. Okay, so, reading through the A&R document and, kind of having a side conversation here, sorry about that. You guys were having a different conversation, so we'll stop. I'll try not to do that again. But the side conversation with Mrs. Easterday was, yes, these are requirements for typical A&Rs, Form As, but because this is already a buildable lot, an existing structure, things are a little different, because you're not trying to build something new, you're not trying to make something buildable. This is something that's already present, and you're just changing the delineation between the properties. So there's some, in my opinion, there's a lot of leeway there, because you're just straightening out and making sure things are lined up properly. So, and appreciate you doing that, and I'm sure it works 2 ways, because it's helping you guys as well, helping the owners as well. So I don't have any concerns. So there anything further from the board before we push
I
this
have
to a vote?
nothing else.
Okay, no, thank you. Somebody want to make a motion to approve the Form A application for Matthew and Jessica Maher, 1707 and 1753 Cedar Street, map 18, lots 14 and 14-1.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take it to a vote? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Yeah.
All right,
I
is there
thank
a-
you. I do apologize again for missing some of those details. I'll be sure that we do not miss those details in the
Okay.
future.
Was that a nay, Joe? Was that a nay, or did you abstain?
That was a nay.
It was a nay, okay. All right, thank you.
Or an abstain.
Abstain. There you go. That's
Abstain?
why you get paid the big bucks. if you get-
Thank you very much. That's for this? All right. Wasting no time. Excellent. That's the Mylars.
We have.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm just overtired. So I have to prove it, otherwise have to come back, you know. Because I brought all of that up, I didn't feel that it was appropriate.
She's my lady. She's my lady.
She is, yeah, she is.
Let's go to coffee.
Okay, you're gonna stay awake this meeting.
Oh, did you hear I fell asleep? The sewer meeting?
Did you?
Get in.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Who's just saying?
I woke up and they were still there.
Oh, at least you were still there.
Did you vote while you were sleeping? That's the important part,
Thank you.
because that could be questionable. There might be a rule against voting while you sleep.
Yeah, I
Let's do this. Weekend at Bernie's.
I meant to ask Diane if she's hot. I was definitely sleeping now.
Joe doesn't sign, right, because he abstained? Sorry, Joe, no signing.
Have a good night.
Extensive testing and documentation from UL, Underwriters Laboratory.
Hey, where'd my coffee go?
All right, thank you. Next order of business is agenda item A482, Wellington Acres
What did they get
Homeowners
again?
Association,
Spill it.
on subject of status of development assessment turnover and proposed draft homeowners association amendment. We received an email from Attorney John Zajac, who represents the developer. Email from October 19th, Wednesday, says, "Hi Carrie, please consider this email a request to continue tonight's hearing. Unless Attorney Mitchell has a strong preference for November 2nd, then I would request November 16th. If you need anything else on my end, please let me know. Regards, John." So, it looks like he's requesting, after a little bit, an additional back and forth, that the subject get continued to the next, or not the next meeting, but the one after, so it would be November 16th. So I entertain a motion to continue this Wellington Acres Homeowners Association topic to November 16th.
I'll
So
make
moved.
that motion.
Second.
Move in a second. Any discussion before we take it to a vote? All right, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No nays, no abstentions. That's 4 ayes. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Excellent. Next topic is 4A3, chapter land recommendation of 2410 Cedar Street, map 14, lot 10. The applicant isn't present by any chance. You guys are both, next topic, right? Or, yeah, you're New Leaf Energy, actually. That's right. Okay, so in your documentation, there is an email dated September 27, 2022, to the Town of Dayton, Board of Selectmen, Assessors, Planning Board, and Conservation Commission. It says, this letter is to inform you of my intent to sell a portion of the land that is classified under Chapter 61A. This property is on a separate deed registered with the Registry of Deeds, Book 19636, page 34. The property is listed as 2410 Cedar Street. This is approximately 3.75 acre lot of land containing two parcels, listed as Assessor's Map 14, Lot 10. The property already has a house and will be sold for residential use. Your prompt attention on this matter would be greatly appreciated. This is from Elizabeth Patello, from, is it Thai Cedarview Realty, I believe?
Trustee of the Cedarview.
Cedar, got it, Realty Trust, got it. All right, so there's quit claim deed presented, and then there's a map that shows the property. And if you look on there, it's a little confusing because they're actually not talking about lot 10, they're talking about lots 47 and 44, that are, one of them already has a house on it. So there's 3 Batello lots shown there, and one is 1.99 acres, and the other one is 1.78 acres. So it's the combination of the two that is being referenced here. So we're being asked to make a recommendation that goes to Conservation after us? Carrie, is that
Yes.
true? Okay. So based on our recommendation, and our recommendation is to either deny the first right of refusal, or not deny.
That's a double negative, right?
That's a double negative. We have first right of refusal. We can either accept or relinquish first right of refusal.
Basically, it's just a recommendation from us.
It's a recommendation from us whether or not we want to allow this to happen. So it would go to the Conservation Commission after that, after us, and then there's a whole list of people there, but eventually go back to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen gets the final call, but they ask for other boards to weigh in as well, and we're one of those. After us is Conservation Commission, and then Board of Selectmen. So I'll be quiet, let you guys look through it, see if you have any questions.
Wasn't there something about a pork shop lot not being allowed?
Right, but this isn't.
You can't get a
making up
building
part-time.
permit for a pork chop lot.
Right.
But they're just asking to take the land out of chapter.
Got a chapter land.
They're not
This
applying
is-
for anything.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to take, allow, what was their name? Elizabeth Patello, to release chapter land at 2410 Cedar Street, map 14, lot 10.
A
I'll
motion?
second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take it to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Abstentions? That's 4 ayes. Motion carries. Awesome. Thank you. All right, next is to review, act, and discuss an act on Pleasant Street Bridge replacement project, and any comments submittal. So, next detail in your packet is the plans for the replacement of the Pleasant Street Bridge. And, this is already, any comments that we have are supposed to go to, Highway Superintendent, Mr. Tom Ferry. So you have a package from Beta, addressed to the planning board, and then there's a drawing for the location, and then finally a drawing for the details on the intent on Pleasant Street, crossing the Muddy Cove Brook. we need to read that letter into record, or is that something that
You
isn't
don't have
necessary?
to, no, you can just give a
Okay.
general.
Yeah, it's effectively, what it's saying is that there's a replacement bridge going on that location, and this letter is from the senior project manager, Todd Warzecki from Beta, and they're just asking for any inputs or comments to please be given to them within 30 days of receiving this to Tom Ferry. And also copy the Beta group, Tom Warzecki, and the email addresses are email
Are they
addresses
just looking for
provided
comments from us?
there. Just looking for comments, yeah. We're not approving anything right now.
Okay.
I don't have any comments today.
Make a motion to carry on.
Okay. So I guess if you have any comments, if you guys can provide them to Carrie, if you want to take a look at this, whenever. I don't think we have to vote on this. It's just,
No comment.
no motion, nothing to make a motion to move on to the next one. Okay, so, next item is, gentlemen, you're up. 4B, presentation by Eric Weinstein, Weinstein? Is that how you pronounce the name? Weinstein, from New Leaf Energy, standalone energy storage system. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight, and we have, do you want the keyboard, do you want the mouse, how do you want to do it?
Should this, I think this allows you to advance.
No, that's,
Right, hopefully.
That's the
Maybe.
future.
Or the mouse maybe.
no, the mouse is
That's
over
how you
there.
gotta charge your car up.
You can try up, there you go. Hey, all right. Page up or page down, or you can probably just use the mouse to click.
You can take that, use that.
For those not here,
I don't believe,
Yeah, we've got,
We got this.
yeah, we've got this.
Whoa.
is that from the one that I provided probably in September when I was meeting with yourself and?
Let's
It's,
see, yes, yeah.
September 8th, 2022 is the date I have in mind.
This is slightly updated, so.
Okay.
Literally a cover sheet, it's
Oh.
almost identical, but
Yeah, that's October 19th, so that the one he has right there is more updated.
yeah, it's almost identical, but I'll just give you these just so you have.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, that's what it is.
the trees are already
Just
dead.
a cover
we may as
sheet
well-
that, yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
Looking for the difference here.
I'm sorry?
It's like one of those difference games.
It's just, I think the date, probably on the last page. on
Got it, okay, got
Yeah.
it, understand. All right,
Okay, so again, Eric Weinstein, project developer at New Leaf Energy. I think I've had a chance to meet all of you at this point, or just about. So we also have Dean Smith as our civil engineer at New Leaf, coming tonight to provide an update on the energy storage project that we've talked about over the course of the last number of months or so. So really just want to provide an update there on the project, but also the company as well. So maybe I can just start jumping through some of these slides for you. So first things first, an update here. You know, we came to you from Borrego the last time we were in front of the planning board. Borrego's development business has always stood on its own. The development business itself was actually spun out at the end of July. Our new name to the development business is New Leaf Energy. So you're getting, you know, it's the same people. It's me and Dean. The development business leadership is all the same. The projects are the same. The mission is the same. But you're seeing a new name. So wanted to give you that update. Okay. I know we've talked about this in the past, so I won't take as long as maybe I have previously, but I think it's probably worthwhile just giving you a little bit of background on battery projects, where they come from and what they do. So firstly, what are battery projects, and why connect them to the grid? Really what they're doing is they're smoothing out some of the supply-demand dynamics on the electrical grid. So for example, with more and more renewable energy coming online onto the electrical grid, you know, you have solar energy providing electricity during the day, wind energy when the wind blows, usually at night. And what batteries do is they basically, they're taking that energy and they're storing it at the times that it's produced, and they're dispatching it at the times when it's actually needed, when everyone's turning on their air conditioning or turning the computers on or using their electricity. So that's how they work. They're also reducing the need for the generation of fossil fuel from the generators that would normally be called on to produce that additional electricity at times of high demand. So they're addressing the supply-demand issue of the electrical grid.
So are you taking like a, hope you don't mind questions during your presentation?
Oh, no
instead of
problem.
waiting to the
Yeah.
end, but you're taking the macroscopic power issue and you're breaking it up into a more microscopic solution because I'm just trying to understand your statement about trying to relieve some of the strain on the grid during high power requirement times, like everybody turns on their air conditioner, where normally you'd be pulling something from higher voltage lines and maybe out of area, and because you're storing it locally, you're saying you have less strain on out of area resources?
Wouldn't say necessarily out of area. What happens is when there's more load, when everyone's turning on their air conditioner,
Yep.
you're basically, there's base load power, so that's like the biggest, cheapest electricity producers, the generators that are turned on, and they're almost always on. During those like peak demand days when everyone has their AC on, the grid basically calls on generation that is not necessarily the cheapest, or it's usually the dirtiest too. So, like peaker plants are generating the difference. What these batteries do, are they basically avoid the need to call on those dirtiest peaker resources by saving essentially some of the generation during, when the wind's blowing the most and you only need 80% of that generation. You're storing the extra and you're dispatching it later, so you're avoiding that dirty generation.
Since the only way they can really control where that's coming from is just with your meter, whether the meter is running, forwards or backwards, depending on whether or not you're charging or discharging. I assume that's metered, and you're determining that locally, and that's how things are being billed out or being credited to you from the grid.
So
That's the only way it's really accounted for, right?
I think tell me if I'm off base, but I'm guessing your question is driving it, like how can you be sure like where this energy is coming from that's going to the battery?
Right, I've got solar panels on my roof.
Yeah.
Right, I don't have batteries, I have solar panels on my roof. So when my meter's running backwards, happy day, because I'm generating more power than I need and I'm pushing power out to the grid. So on top of that, I get power credits from National Grid because I'm making my own power. And then as I consume energy, those credits go away and eventually I stable out. So in your situation, you're like a pump and dump station, excuse the term, but you're storing energy locally. So at that point, your meter you're consuming energy from the grid, and then when you're dumping it back onto the grid, it's running effectively backwards.
I think I understand the
That's
the analogy
your
you're
power
trying to
budget,
make.
in versus out, because you're
There's a bit of a different mechanism for like transmission connected storage,
Okay.
but like conceptually, yes, how you're being accounted for these electrons. They're electrons. They're not like a wind electron and a gas.
power is power.
Exactly. So actually, this slide kind of addresses that in some regard. The Clean Peak Energy Standard is basically the regulations that are kind of driving the promotion of some of these battery projects, and how that works is utilities are now being required to produce a portion of the electricity that they put out during these peak periods of time from clean resources. So the way that these batteries are being promoted essentially is when they're being charged and discharged, that operational schedule needs to line up with the electric grid's energy needs. So, when all the air conditioner is on, like that's the only time that you'd be, aligning with the credits associated with this. So in that way, it's lining up with the times where renewable energy is most prevalent on the grid, and that's the entirety of the point of the program.
Okay.
So thanks for the question. That actually kind of helped segue me into the point, like where's this coming from, and how's the state promoting these types of projects from the Department of Energy Resources. It's through this Clean Peak Energy program. And I know some of that's a bit arcane, but I think it's a good question.
Got it.
So by participating in the program, basically you're avoiding reliance on peaker plants, you're participating in a clean energy standard program, and you're adding reliability to the grid. So when we're looking to site projects like these, we're looking to cite a project footprint as efficiently as possible from a few different standpoints. So one being, we want to site these projects next to the existing infrastructure at the electrical grid. There's a lot of electrical grid infrastructure out there. Not all of it's built the same. Not all of it is the same, KV rating, etc. But we want to be utilizing to the best of our ability as much as already exists rather than building new infrastructure. And we're performing a rigorous analysis to identify the most technically and economically feasible points of interconnection on the grid as well. And then lastly, there's a lot of consideration that we have for screening from public view or abutters, and minimizing environmental impact as well. So that's how we cite these projects.
How do you minimize environmental impact when you have to clear all the land?
Well, I'm saying, like, we're not going to go cite a project where you've got a rare breed of deer on it, something like that. You're not going to be looking at disturbing a humongous amount of wetland. Yes, to develop a project of any sort, generally there has to be space to do it. So try to minimize that in terms of natural habitat and whether that's identified.
There's no way of minimizing the damage that you're gonna do to put in a facility like this.
You do have to clear space, yes.
There might be, some critters that could use the property, but
Yeah, in any development, yes, you have to clear to do it. We try to keep an eye to minimize critical habitat or things like that, but yes, you do have to clear. So back about, I'll mention that after, but just giving you a sense for the project area that we've discussed with some folks in this room as well as some other town reps, is the corner of Dighton here at the Rehoboth line. It's adjacent to the currently under construction Reynolds Ave substation in Rehoboth, just to the north of where this arrow is being pointed out. Okay. So last time that we were in front of Dana and I were in front of the planning board here, we provided an update to give you a sense for a conceptual system design, to solicit some feedback on what this looks like and where to go from here. So looking at this system design that we had showed you back, I think, in April or so, you can see that it's the system is directly adjacent to the Reynolds Ave substation to the north that I mentioned, and it's also behind the existing transmission corridor to the east, running from the northeast to the southwest. You've got an ample setback from public view and abutters, as well as vegetative screening associated with that. So back in April, if I go back in time actually a little further, some of the earliest conversations we had at a conceptual level had been with, I think, the former chair of the planning board, as well as the building inspector and the fire chief, to start soliciting feedback on the project. And we initially had done that probably about a year ago. We had gotten some feedback that we should be permitting the project. The appropriate path forward would be as a solar project. Obviously, this is a standalone battery. We were told that over the coming months, we knew there was some movement to amend the existing solar bylaw and potentially add storage into the bylaw as well. So back in April, we had given a presentation on this conceptually, and we had sat in when the planning board first heard or decided to move forward with the PV energy storage bylaw amendments that have been under consideration for the last number of months. And then back in about a month ago, I know that was kind of continued, and we heard some more feedback from that. So the comments that we took away from that, a few of them were, I had identified that the setback that was being required for energy storage of 200 feet and 100-foot vegetated buffer would ultimately reduce a 17.5 acre parcel to about 3.5 acres of usable space, which is about a third of the footprint that I just showed you. So the concerns were mostly about, that we had heard were mostly about visual impact to neighbors, and we had talked about the setback as well. So the update that we wanted to show you today is this again, conceptual system design here, where you can see that we've taken some of that into consideration to the best of our ability here, where you can see that 100-foot setback is now maintained from all the property lines. The footprint of the project area is spread further down to the south. It looks a little bit funky to you, but the reason for that is specifically to provide some additional to maximize the distance from the nearest residences to the east and the northwest. And it provides further setback from property lines. It maximizes vegetative buffer and while also avoiding wetlands.
There are no panels here, right? These are just batteries.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's the same number of batteries in both you.
It is, so it's almost identical in terms of the actual acreage, I think that is pointed out there. It's just rearranged to try to align as best as we could with the thoughts and concerns that were voiced from the last planning board meeting. So I'll jump ahead if I guess you've got that in front of you as well, but feel free to stop me or send me backwards. So conversation, what's next? I had a couple questions I wanted to ask the planning board as well, just to try to get some additional feedback, and then talk a little bit about, where we see the next steps being for a project like this. So the first one is the status of the existing PV and storage bylaw. I know back in September, it sounded like that was now going to a special town meeting on the 1st of November. Is that that's correct?
To the 1st, November 1st, yeah.
November 1st.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So just wanted to confirm that. We're still, we're interested in additional feedback, like what we've done over the number of months here, for whether that's from yourselves or from the fire chief or for other town officials. We'd like to be participating in those conversations with you.
Okay.
So today, the goal really here was to give you an update on how we've tried to align some of those concerns with the design here. And also just to talk about a couple other things. So one being a community meeting that we want to host. So that would be essentially, whether it's virtual or in person. I understand in person I think is preferable. I've reached out to
I agree, yeah.
I'm sorry?
I agree.
All right, so that was a question I want to have. So we basically want to host a forum where we can invite, interested community members to ask some questions and learn about the project.
Yeah, your bullet here says coordinating with the town administrator, and your second one, he can answer the question on who else should be present.
Yes, okay.
'Cause he'll know, he'll know who else he'd want there from the town, and then they can figure out how to get there. Okay.
Okay. All right, that answers that question. And then additionally, like recommendations on scheduling. I know I'll be asking that question of the town administrator as well, but if there's any input that you gentlemen have as well, I'd take that.
I'd say anytime after the special is probably fine, but
Okay.
town administrator can answer.
Yeah.
Because he'll know what activities are going on, they're
Sure.
busy and whatnot, and see what night makes the most sense.
Okay.
Assuming it'd be evening thing like this, where residents can,
In all likelihood, that's what I would imagine.
okay, all right, so not a daytime, town employee meeting only. It'd be
Try to do it
open
when
to the
some
public.
people are available.
Okay, yeah, that'd be good. Okay.
So that's the concept there. And then the final note is the Energy Facility Siting Board. I know we talked about this in the past as well, but Energy Facility Siting Board being basically the state agency that would be reviewing a project like this and providing input on merits of the project and also exemptions or anything that's needed to be considered for approval of the project. That would happen. I put Q2 2023. I think that was one of the dates I had updated from the last packet that was shared. That's really subject to kind of interconnection timeline with the utility. So as that becomes clearer, I'll certainly update the planning board. But that's kind of our finger
Yeah,
there.
because
on
we're
when that
there. It is Q2, October.
23.
What's that?
That's
Oh, this
Q2
is-
2023
This is calendar, not fiscal.
and 2023. Yes, correct.
Okay, all right, I think in terms of fiscal years, sorry.
Yeah. Yes. So that's really, I think that's my last slide here for you. Yes, it is. That's the extent of what I had for you. I want to make sure, opportunity to answer some questions, but mostly just provide an update on where we were, our plans for coordinating with the town, coordinating with the EFSB.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for the detailed presentation. Question on your, technical question on your battery units. Are you still planning on using the Tesla Megapacks? I think you sent us some documentation some time back. This guy here.
Yeah, I think I may have shown you that as a reference point, but generally, like we're using whatever is most commercially viable product right now. We're looking at a Powern product. It's subject to change, basically. What's available at the time of actual construction and what makes the most sense.
Yeah,
So we're not.
Mr. Figueroa had a question about UL rating and whatnot. I mean, I would imagine whatever you're planning would be.
Yes, they'll all be UL rated. I'm a project developer, I'm not an engineer, so I'm probably not the best person to answer your specific questions on that for you, but yes, it's all fully.
The way I see it, I don't think anybody can give you a concrete answer on how these things are safe. That's my personal view of it. And it's kind of scary in a sense, to be putting something like this next to a bunch of homes. If something happens, everything that I've been looking into is, if one of these goes, a lot of them are gonna go.
Yeah, so I'll jump in. There's a lot of safety that goes, like a lot of safety planning that goes into each of these units, the cells that are in the units, the form factor, the fire suppression agents, the monitoring of these things, the coordination with the fire department ahead of time, make sure that there's training and everyone's comfortable. So, yeah, I mean, that's something that's always going to come up as a question with battery units, and it's something that, as we get further into this, we want to be in pretty close contact with. Probably the fire chief is number one, fire department, but to make sure that everyone understands how to treat these things. But a fair concern.
It's just a concern
Yeah.
that I have, and that's, hopefully nothing will ever happen.
Yeah, we're a little familiar with the battery storage because we're dealing with it on another site.
Mm-hmm.
But, they are dangerous. Our fire chief is well aware. This is gonna be a much larger scale than we're looking at the solar farm
Sure.
on Brook Street. This is a much larger scale. We're concerned about safety to the neighbors and safety to our fire personnel who have to possibly, show up and put out one of these fires, which is almost impossible to put out from what I understand, but it is what it is, and we gotta follow the rules and the law. We don't make them up, we just follow them.
Yes. Yeah. It's something we would definitely.
Who's the property owner?
There's a couple properties that you're looking at there that spread across. So there's
So there'll be
Yeah, it's like
multiple owners,
1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4.
a couple parcels.
4 different owners.
It's not four
different
owners, but
parcels,
it's more than one owner.
All the parcels are owned by separate people?
No, I think it's 2 and 2, and it's not necessarily individual ownership, but
Well, I'm just concerned, just wondering, are these town residents that own this property, or?
yep. One of them is lives on site there.
Oh, he lives on site, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Not that it matters, I'm just curious.
Sure.
One of the owners lives on this site, is that what you said?
I mean, if you can see in the map there that the site is actually located on the other side of transmission lines. So generally, the residential developments and homes, including on that property, are on the east side of the transmission lines. Everything on the west side of the transmission line is just woodland, and then it's Rehoboth.
Yeah, I'm gonna wanna look at that site, I'm gonna take a ride up there.
Yeah, it looks like it just ends at a cul-de-sac on Menard.
Yeah, and that's on the other side of the
That's the
transmission
clearing.
line.
Just walk out to the clearing there.
So, right, and so I think some of the concerns that were pointed out especially were about concerns for visual buffer, et cetera. And like the nearest neighbor or resident is on Maynard Lane, and it's a cul-de-sac. And then it's a couple hundred feet of transmission line and overhead lines that you see. Then it's tree line, and then behind that would be where this is. So you're well sighted there. Okay.
Anything else, guys?
No, I mean, obviously, or we're, at the special town meeting, it is still being proposed as a 200-foot setback in that what's gonna be voted on
Yeah.
November 1st. And since you're showing here 100-foot setback, does that, if the 200-foot setback were to be authorized at town meeting, does that pretty much eliminate this as a possibility if that were to be observed?
Yeah, so this is part of the EFSB process that I was alluding to, where, if there's zoning issues that need to be addressed to facilitate, projects that are otherwise deemed necessary for the public need, they're able to grant, specific exemption from a zoning bylaw that doesn't apply to a project like this. So that's where that would come in. I think, part of, why we've been back in front of the planning board and soliciting some feedback and trying to align with the PV and energy storage bylaw is specifically because we want to make sure there's alignment between what the town's looking for and what we're bringing potentially to the FSB. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time. Thank you for coming by.
Okay.
All right, next item on the agenda is 4C, public hearing, Forest Hills Estates. We received an email from the developer on October 13th, last Thursday. Kerry, Outback Engineering, is still working through the peer review comments, requests, and tasks, and corresponding revisions to project documents. Applicant respectfully requests a continuance of the planning board's November 16th meeting. Planning board would like, I'm happy to attend next week and provide a project update. Thank you. Best, Josh W. Glass from Apex Companies, and he's the representative to the developer. So I let Mrs. Easterday know that Mr. Glass did not need to be present tonight. So all we need to do is entertain a motion to continue the Forest Hill Estates Special Permit Conservation Subdivision Public Hearing to the November 16th Planning Board meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Motion second. Any discussion before we take it to a vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4 ayes, motion carries. Thank you.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Mr. Woods,
Who second? Thank you.
Mr. Figurito. That was 4 ayes.
Appreciate it.
Carrie, you only have September 21st meeting minutes here. You were supposed to do the 5th, or we don't have those ready yet?
September 21st?
21st, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Oh,
Good night.
It's supposed to be the 5th,
not
right?
caught up.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the 5th, right?
Supposed to be October 5th.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can we change that?
yeah.
Okay. All right, entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for October 5th, 2022.
Second? Oh, I'll make that motion.
You make that motion? Can we get a second to?
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, October 5th meeting minutes are approved.
Thank you.
No problem. Carrie, do we have any correspondence?
None,
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nobody writes, nobody cares.
not this
Any,
week.
any public input? Input?
I was watching the debate.
All right.
She talked about it.
Nothing further? Make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night.
Good night,
YouTube-
cable.
YouTube cable.